Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Fuhrman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Friday, September 29th, marks the feast of the Archangels mentioned in the Bible, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Other non-canonical books mention many more, including Uriel, Sandalphon, and Metatron. Who are these divine entities? What are their missions? And how may anyone begin a conversation with them? My guest this week on Vox Novus, Debra Schildhouse, has been conversing with archangels since 2011 and recognized that all living souls may do the same. Since inviting her divine best friends into her life, she's been blessed with angelic support, wisdom, and love like she's never experienced before. Her website is debraschildhouse.com, and she joins me this week to share her experience and new book, How to Chat with Archangels, inviting your divine best friends into your life. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus Debra Schildhouse. Welcome, Debra.
Well, thank you, Victor. I'm so happy to be here.
Debra, please share with us your early life and how it planted the seeds for your understanding and work with both the BioTouch healing and the archangels.
Well, I actually was born into a loving, close-knit family, very happy childhood in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I just have such a fabulous memory of my mother. When I was so little, she would be reading to me from a children's Bible. And it was gorgeous, these pages that were drawn of the angels and God. And it was these big, powerful angels that I was so attracted to. And I didn't even know why at the time, but I just felt something really special for them. And through my childhood, I loved books. I loved reading. I loved writing. And I wrote through school. I entered writing contests and won a few of them. And I thought, just to be an author would be fabulous. And I still always had this affinity to these big angels. And even though it wasn't discussed, in my life with anyone, it was just there. By the time I got to college at the University of Cincinnati, I was a sophomore, and life was great. I mean, I had absolutely no complaints. Life was just wonderful until all of a sudden it wasn't. And my boyfriend of 2 years was killed in an automobile accident.
Sorry. And
my life was shattered. I just couldn't wrap my head around what happened. His body was obviously, buried, but where was he? I couldn't. It was just awful. Nothing made sense to me, and it was a terrible time. And about 6 months later, at that time, I was living on campus in my sorority house, and two of my sorority sisters said, "You know what? You got to get back out among the living. And we know a wonderful man. He's a student here. His name's Howard, and we're going to fix you up on a date with him, and you've got to go." And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Yep, you're going." So I went on this date with Howard, and, they were right. He was great. I enjoyed myself. During the date, he asked me, he said, "Do you want to go to a Jethro Tull concert?" And I said, "Oh, I love Jethro Tull. Yes." And he said, "Well, they're coming to Ohio State in a couple weeks, and we can go." And I said, "Oh, you know what?" I said, "My parents would never let me go drive a couple hours away to a different campus, a different city with someone that, they didn't know." I said, "So you're going to have to come over to my parents' house and meet them." We were 19 years old. And so he said, "That's fine. I don't mind meeting your parents. Great." So we arranged a day and a time when he would be coming over to meet my parents. Well, that meeting never happened because that morning my father had a heart attack and he was dead by early afternoon. And so this was 6 months, in this 6-month period where the two men in my life that I love so much were all of a sudden gone. And my father had suffered a lot. He had medical issues. He was in World War II. He was in the 101st Airborne. He was a medic, paratrooper, and he was captured at the Battle of the Bulge. And he was marched over 300 miles in the coldest, snowiest winter on record at that time. And he was held in a prisoner of war camp for 4 months. And so, he had had a lot of issues, after that, naturally. And then here, Howard came to the funeral with my sorority sisters. And, he could have been dating any girl that had a normal life at that time, instead of me, with all this emotional crazy baggage now. But he hung in there, God bless him, and he and I will be married 50 years in June.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. Do you think you were soulmates?
I mean, I really do. I believe that my boyfriend and definitely my father at that point, somehow there was some arrangement made, they were leaving and this introduction was being made because Howard kind of just came into my life and he just took care of me, took care of things. He helped me through, the worst time ever. He was just he was my rock.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's how our relationship started.
Wonderful. And you guys live out in the mountains of Arizona? We
do. We live out, and now we've lived so many places over all the years. But we live up here now. Well, we got married in 1974, and by that time, Howard was already an accountant. He was a CPA. He was working. And I had already started on a spiritual path of trying to understand death and dying. There wasn't a whole lot of information at that time. There weren't books and books, filling shelves of it. But I started to, read. I took some classes. I kind of had a spiritual teacher. She was talking about things I never heard of, like, out-of-body experiences and, life regression and all this interesting stuff that I was hearing for the first time. And just, trying to wrap my head around death and dying. Where do we go? What happens to us? And then I gave birth to our first child, our daughter, Jill. And I was very lucky and happy to be able to stay home full time with her. And I did that. And I would then, study at night. I would do some writing. It was just a nice balanced life. And then in 1980, the movie Resurrection came out. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Ellen Burstyn.
Mm-hmm.
And so she played a hands-on healer. And I was fascinated with her ability to help people heal from all kinds of terrible illnesses, diseases, whatever. And I had read that they actually had a real healer on the set as an advisor, to the actors. And then I was like, okay, I've got to find out about this healing, because if I can't understand death, maybe I can heal people and prolong life to some degree for people. And so I added that kind of study to what I was already doing. And again, there wasn't a whole lot of information about hands-on healing, but I got some books and I tried it. They said you have to center yourself and you have to bring heat into your hands. And I tried this, and I worked on some family and friends, and sometimes I maybe could get rid of somebody's headache, but usually not so much, But I was still enjoying these different studies that I was doing and writing for just my own pleasure at night. And then in 1983, I gave birth to our son, David, and really got, into a busy life. And it was great. And it was many years, just went along exactly how I was hoping it would.
And how did BioTouch healing appear for you?
Well, so what happened then was in 2009, our daughter Jill, now by this time our kids are already grown and living on their own. And Jill had a very busy life and she's a career lady, but she came down with viral meningitis. And it was so awful. The doctors were trying and they couldn't really figure out at first what she had. She was in so much pain, her head and neck. She couldn't sit, she couldn't stand. She had to crawl to the bathroom. It was horrible. And Howard and I were living in Tucson at the time. She was living in Phoenix. And I pretty much moved in with her for almost 3 weeks to help her through this. And I kept trying to lay my hands on her. And I kept trying to figure out, why can't I help my own daughter? And it was very frustrating. But thank God she recovered. She went back to her busy life. And I went back to Tucson and I said, I've got to find some way that I don't have to ever feel that helpless or hopeless again. And I have to find some kind of healing technique that would work. And well, I had heard about BioTouch, and BioTouch actually, there was a center. The Center for BioTouch was in Tucson, not too far from where we lived. And so I signed up for classes. It's a beautiful organization. They give classes for, such a small amount of money. So anybody can afford their classes where you can learn how to do BioTouch and work on your own family and friends. They had, you could go have sessions of BioTouch and it was just donations only. It was just remarkable what I was learning about BioTouch. And it's a simple healing technique. You don't have to center yourself. You don't have to bring heat in your hands. You use the first 2 fingers of each hand to lightly touch specific points on the body. And it kind of reminds your body how to heal itself. It's basically what's going on.
And that inspired your first book, BioTouch, Healing with the Power in Our Fingertips. And how else does it differ from other healing modalities?
Well, it is lightly like a butterfly touching on the skin. And there's no levels, where you have to study and go on to the next level. Anybody can do it right away. Even children can be effective at it. It's simple. It's just what it should be. And I started to want to actually work there. So I signed up for the internship program where I had 64 hours of hands-on, experience working on people. We're all volunteers there because it's an all-volunteer organization. And I was seeing so many amazing things. People were being made feel better. Their pain was gone. People with diabetes, they could have less insulin. It was incredible. And one day, the man who discovered BioTouch and who was the founder, the director, Paul Bucky, he said, somebody needs to write the book about BioTouch. More people need to know about this. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do it. I can do it. I'm going to write this book. Even though I wasn't a professional writer, I said, I can do this. And so 3.5 years later, there was the book. And it was an incredible ride. The book is about my experiences learning BioTouch, about Paul Bucky's life. He devoted his life after he discovered this being taught in a small town in Colorado in the 80s. He developed a way to teach it. And that's what he's been doing ever since. So that was just an awesome time. But, the angels were still in the back of my mind. I was still always thinking about the angels, and I had seen the movie Michael. And I loved the idea. It was that John Travolta movie.
Yes.
That an archangel can become friends with humans. And I thought, this is what I want. I want a relationship with the archangels like in that movie. So then what happened was, after promoting the BioTouch book for a few years, I got into mediumship. I took some mediumship classes with a well-known evidential medium named Suzanne Giesemann. And she taught me online with a bunch of other people. It was fascinating. And I joined a mediumship circle for 2 years where this group of 10 people, we would Zoom call together every week. And we would actually be able to bring spirits from the other side over, like our family, our friends who had passed over. And it just was so comforting for me because it put it all together for me that, they're okay. They may not be in their body anymore, but they're okay. And I could kind of heal, from the trauma of the, the deaths that I still, couldn't get over at that time. And so while I was, doing this mediumship, I was still at the back of my mind. I was saying, I have to write my next book. I have to write the Archangel book. Because at that point, I had been communicating with archangels in an amazing way for like 8 years. And I said, now it's time for me to focus on that. And that's what I did. I quit the mediumship circle and I started writing the Archangel book. I started in March of 2020, right at COVID beginning. And I finished it in March of 2023. And it just came out last week.
Congratulations. It's entitled How to Chat with Archangels, Inviting Your Divine Best Friends into Your Life. Now, you mentioned you'd had that connection for 8 years prior to writing the book. When and how did your Archangel consciousness and communication begin?
So in 2011, in February of 2011, there was an email going around. And it was going around in this country and actually all over the world. And it started with a medium who was from Germany, and her name was Amiri, I think. Anyway, she had been visited by 5 of the archangels, and she had such an amazing experience with them in her home that she wanted to share this experience with as many people as possible. So she started this email, and it said, if you would like to host 5 of the archangels in your home for 5 days, you may do that, and we will send them to you. And you arrange for the archangels then to go to other people, 3 other people as hosts when they leave your house. And we will let you know the date and time when the angels will show up.
Wow.
Well, I was so excited. I'm like, for real? Sign me up. And so this email had instructions on how to set up an altar and what things you're going to need and who was coming. And it was going to be archangels Michael, Uriel, Metatron, Gabriel, and Raphael. And they were to come, in my case, February the 23rd of 2011. They were to come at 10:30 at night. And I was so excited. I had my altar set up. And, I said to Howard, I said, honey, I said, you know what? The archangels are coming. 5 of them are going to come tonight, and they're going to come at 10:30, and I'm going to let them in the front door and say some things to them, and they're going to just hang out at our house for the next 5 days. And this is my husband, right? He sees a lot of things in black and white, right? He's an accountant. And he said, honey, he says, I'm going to bed. You have a good time and say hi for me. So I said, okay. And so 10:30 finally came. This is how the book starts, where I opened the front door. I didn't know what to expect. And there was nobody there. But I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me just say this thing I have to say. And I, just felt this whoosh of energy hit my chest. Mm. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're here. They're really here. And so I read the speech thing and I showed them around the house, and I took them into the den where I had the altar set up. And I said, you can hang out here, or you can, hang out wherever you want. All of a sudden I was so sleepy. I said, I'm going to bed. And I blew the candle out from the altar, and I said, I'll see you tomorrow.
Did you take them to the kitchen and show them where all the goodies were?
I did. I took them for a tour of the house. I mean, somebody would have thought I was insane, right? That's just nuts. But for the next 5 days, I had the most amazing experiences. And like I said, let's go, get in the car. I could just picture them filing in the car with me. And at that time, I was working at the BioTouch Center. And I went to the BioTouch Center, and I swear people were different toward me. Like they could pick up the energy or something. They were like more open, more calm, more friendly. I don't know. Or I stopped at the drugstore to pick up a few things, and strangers would say hello to me. You know, I was like, okay, this is so cool. But the second night that they were there at the house, I figured out how to communicate with them. And well, that's another whole story, but I'll tell you. But anyway, and I found out what worked for me. And I would start to communicate with them each of the 5 nights. And the things that they told me those nights came true. And some took right away. Some took 3 years. Some have taken 12 years to come through and come true. But it all happened. And so this was such an amazing 5 days that by the time I had to walk them to the door to say goodbye on that 5th night, I was a basket case. I was like crying. I was like, I don't want you to go. I said, we're finally having this relationship I've wanted for my whole life, and I have to say goodbye to you. I said, I'll tell you what, I know you're omnipotent. I know you can be any place at the same time. I said, I'm going to open the door and send you off to these next 3 people. But I don't want you to go. I want you to stay with me forever. Please don't leave me. And I opened the door and I pictured them flying away, and I shut the door, and whoosh, I felt that energy back again, and I knew that they were with me. And they have been with me and communicating with me for 12 years. They're still here.
My guest is Debra Schildhouse. Her new book, How to Chat with Archangels, Inviting Your Divine Best Friends into Your Life. Debra, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
My book is on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on IndieBound. And my website is debraschildhouse.com.
And we'll be back with more of Debra after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Debra Schildhouse. Her new book, How to Chat with Archangels, Inviting Your Divine Best Friends into Your Life. Debra, from your experience and communication, what are the archangels and what is their mission?
So the archangels were created by God. He created a whole hierarchy of angels, and there are 9 ranks of them, including thrones, cherubim, seraphim, dominions, virtues, archangels. It's the archangels that he created as a gift to humanity, because the archangels, they have been tasked with helping humans. That is what they were created to do. And each of the archangels has an area of expertise that they help us in. For instance, Archangel Michael, he's the angel of protection, of travel, of truth, of justice. If you're traveling and you want your itinerary to go smoothly, if you want your airplane to come on time, anything to keep you safe while you're traveling, he's the archangel to call upon. If you're going to have something if you've got a court case coming up and you need the truth and justice to come out, call upon Archangel Michael. Archangel Raphael is another example. He is the angel of healing. So if you need healing, whether it's your body, your soul, your spirit, you call on Archangel Raphael. So each of them has this area of expertise to help us with. This is our gift from God. And also each archangel, they project a color or colors of the light spectrum. So again, Archangel Michael, he projects the colors royal purple and royal blue, and Archangel Raphael projects the color emerald green. And the archangels are just waiting for us to ask for help. They are seriously underemployed. There is something that we have called free will, and it is a law, a universal law, and they cannot intrude on our lives, even to help us, even if they want to, unless we give them permission. We give them the green light and inviting them in. And in that way, they can help us. And that is what this whole book is about, because your life changes when you invite these divine best friends into your life in ways that are so incredible.
Now, does archangel communication require a certain faith or religious practice, or may anyone start the conversation?
I am so glad that you even asked that question, because they are love. The archangels are pure love, and they have so much love for us. And they really don't care if we are very religious, if we're a little religious, if we don't have a religious background. They do not judge. This is not who they are. They are just here to love us and to help us, no matter what. So no, you don't have to have any training, any religious beliefs. Just believe in the love.
And you say we must invite them into our lives. How do we invite them in?
It could be very simple. It could be just a matter of, you're having a problem, you're having a crisis, whatever, and you say, "Oh, please help me. Angels, archangels, God, please help me now." It could be a prayer. It could just be, something like, "I need you now. I need your help." And you only have to say it one time. And once you've said it, you have opened that door. They love to send signs too. I mean, that's one of the things that they love to do. They love to send these amazing signs to let you know that they're with you. And I had been communicating with the archangels for about 8 months. And I said to them one night, "You know what? I know you're with me. I know you love me. We've had this great communication. But could you just send me a really big sign that you are really with me, and make it so big that I can't miss it?" And I remember I went and told Howard, I said, "I've asked for a sign that the archangels are with me." And he said, "Okay, that's nice." Well, 2 days later, our son was visiting from Atlanta, and he and I were in the kitchen talking. And Howard came through the kitchen and he went out the back door to go do something. And all of a sudden he's back. He opens the door and he says, "Hurry up, grab my phone. I need my camera, and hurry up out here." So we grab his phone, we run out there, and he's looking up at the sky. And so we look up, and above our house is floating a huge cloud angel. There was not another cloud in the sky. And this huge archangel with huge wings is just floating there, slowly going across the yard. And then it went over the wall and got smaller and smaller and smaller. And we're just all like, "Oh my God." And I said, "Yay, thank you, angels." I said, "Thank you. I mean, this was big. I couldn't have missed this sign." And then our son David said, "But Mom, you would have missed it if Dad hadn't come out here. You would never have seen it. We were in the house." And I said, that's right. I said, Howard, how come you even went outside at this moment? And he said, I don't know. I just felt like it. And I said, well, what do you think of the archangels now, honey? And he goes, I think I'm a believer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. You and I are so attuned on this message because my next question to you was going to be, in addition to conversations, do they manifest themselves in other ways? And you mentioned the clouds. What are some other ways that they manifest for us?
Well, they can make obvious big signs like that. There's also little signs that come through. For instance, maybe you hear lyrics, in a song, and maybe you see like angel numbers. You keep seeing the same numbers over and over. Or you could see like, you pick up a magazine and you just happen to get on this article. It's something that, it's a message that, you need to hear. Maybe it answers some questions that you've had. They also can come through with dreams where you can get an answer through a dream. But in this case, again, the archangels, I think they really wanted to show my husband, how he could be a believer, because the next big sign that they sent, again, it was in front of my husband, and I wouldn't have known it was there if he hadn't seen it. And what happened was I had injured my back. And I was in a bad shape. I was in a wheelchair. It was terrible. For 4 months, I was not doing well. But I got to the point where I could take a short road trip. So we drove to Prescott, Arizona, and we spent the night in a hotel there. And that night, a new archangel, new for me, came through. His name was Archangel Raphael. And he came through and he said, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Your back is going to be fine. Don't worry, you will be whole again. And it was just a beautiful message. So the next day we got in the car and took another short trip to Jerome, Arizona. And when we got there, we went to a restaurant called The Haunted Hamburger. And we went and sat in the back room. There was a lot of people there, big windows. The sun was coming through, beautiful. It was nice to be among the living again. And we had our hamburgers, and it was a wonderful time. And I was telling Howard, I said, a new archangel came through to me last night. His name is Angel Raphael. I don't know much about him, but he was very loving. And Howard said, oh, that's nice. Okay. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, Howard looks at me and he goes, whoa, Deb. I said, what? He says, I've never seen anything like this. I said, what? He said, there's a rainbow on your face. He says, it's in your hair. I said, what's in my hair? And I start patting around my head. And he says, wait a minute. And he starts taking pictures of me. And he shows me these photos of, this is a big rainbow just all over my face. And I'm like, whoa, how's that even happen? And he says, okay, the sun's coming through the glass. He says, but he says, the prism is not on anybody else. It's not on anyone else sitting in front of the windows. It's not on me. It's not on the table. He says, it's only on your face. And it actually looks like it's coming from inside you, like you're lighting up from inside. And so just then our waiter walked by, and Howard says, excuse me. He says, look at my wife's face. And he looks at me and he goes, cool. And Howard said, well, does this happen to people often sitting here? He says, no, I've never seen this happen before. And I said, well, how long have you worked here? He said, 5 years. Okay, so this rainbow is on my face for another at least 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden it's gone. It just disappeared. And I found out later that Archangel Raphael, he projects the colors of the rainbow. And so that was another loving encouragement, again, in front of Howard. I would never even know it was there. It was, it was on my face.
So you're a believer and an experiencer. I'm a believer and an experiencer. Many of our listeners are believers and experiencers. So for the doubting Thomases and Thomasinas out there, how do we really know we're communicating with archangels?
Well, first of all, I put the photos up on my website, debraschildhouse.com, because I couldn't put them in my book in color. So you have to see these to see for yourself. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. But another way you know that you're communicating with archangels is that they are pure love, as I said before. So the messages you get from them are always for your higher good. They are always to encourage you, to lift you up, to help you through tough times. I always say that if you are getting some kind of messages that are not that kind of loving, beautiful encouragement, you are not talking to archangels. And we can all communicate with archangels, because the hardest part about chatting with archangels really is believing that you really can. I taught 3 groups of people how to do what I do, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one who could do it the way I do it in my little method. And all of the people that first night had some degree of success hearing messages from their archangels, their best friends, because we all have a 6th sense, and we have these clair senses that some of them are more developed than others, but we all have them. And the more that we use them, the stronger they become.
Absolutely. I've had the gift of clairaudience since childhood, and the clairvoyance also since childhood. And before my angel consciousness opened up in my late 30s, which I'll share with you later, I shared with you offline, but I'll share with our listeners later, I would get a lot of messages. And one of the most dramatic messages, in 1975, I was in the United States Air Force, and I was stationed in Seoul, Korea. And my mother and my sister and brother were back here in New York, 6,000 miles away. And one morning I woke up in 1975, and I had no indication, no letters, no communication that would caution me about this. But I heard in my head, "Something's wrong with Mom. She needs to hear from you." And I called my mother, and my sister picked up we had extension phones in those days, and my sister picked up the extension. My mother picked up the main phone, and I said, "Mom, what's wrong?" And my sister said, "Oh my God, how did he find out?" And it turned out that the next day she was scheduled for major surgery, and immediately my voice inside, the angelic voice inside my head, said, "Tell her the operation will be a complete success. She'll have a full recovery. She's going to be just fine." And she needed to hear those words from me. And obviously that transpired. She had a complete successful operation, and everything was healed, and she turned out to be just fine. So these are the kind of messages that we know are available to each and every one of us.
Exactly. Any human, any soul, that's connected to a human has this ability, and it's really a birthright. It's something that we need. We need to hear, that these divine best friends are just waiting to help us. And they say so many beautiful things. In my book, I have a chapter called, I call it Archangelisms. And these are some of the most beautiful things that they have shared with me, and they're for everybody. So, for instance, Archangel Sandalphon said, "You can achieve great things by allowing the best of yourself to permeate the rest of yourself." Archangel Raphael said, "Try to remember that pain can promote growth as a crack in an eggshell promotes new life in the hatching." And he came through and said that while I was suffering with my back problem. And another angel, who's actually, his name is Jebediah, and he's actually my essence angel, which I have a whole chapter on that. He said, "We love you because we know how you were created, with fibers and filaments of light and adoration from the One. Every single soul who is or has ever lived on this earth was rightfully created within the loving veneration of God. There will be a day that will dawn with the shared realization of just how important you all really are."
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was so beautiful. Please tell us a little bit about Gabriel and about Uriel and about Metatron.
Oh my God, I love them all so much. So Angel Gabriel is the messenger angel. And she actually, and I say she, even though archangels are genderless, some of the archangels have a more feminine energy that people can pick up on, some people, and some have a more masculine energy. Archangel Gabriel has a more feminine energy. She is the messenger angel. She not only helps you figure out the best words to say to somebody else, but she also brings you messages that you need to hear in various ways. She also has a lot to do with anything to do with raising children, parenting, even adoptions. If you're having problems with your children, no matter how old they are, that she is the one you would call on for that. And she has helped me with a lot of times when I was trying to get a message across to somebody and I wasn't doing a very good job, and I needed help. Archangel Uriel, he is the angel of wisdom, and he has a lot of different kinds of esoteric as well as higher principles, of learning. So if you're in school and you have to memorize something or you really need to study, you call upon Archangel Uriel and he will help you with that. He's also the angel of writers. And so whenever I'm writing, having a writing session, I ask him to be with me and to, give me support, or if I'm having, a block and I can't think of the words I want, then he can help that with anything that you're writing.
And we're gonna have to take a quick break, so we'll talk about Metatron when we come back. My guest is Debra Schildhouse. Her new book, How to Chat with Archangels, Inviting Your Divine Best Friends into Your Life. We'll be back after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
They are our cuddlers and co-workers, purr machines and love bugs, and constant companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life so much better. When we face unexpected challenges in life, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people who love their pets, and the pets who love their people, ensuring these families stay exactly where they belong, together. And you have something to offer. With an open heart and mind, there is nothing you can't do. There's no gesture too small or too big when it comes to helping. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. You can help keep pets and people together. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Debra Schildhouse. Her book, how to chat with archangels, inviting your divine best friends into your life. Debra, I shared this briefly before we started. Back in the late 1980s, I began studying Reiki, and during the first class, the teacher led us in a meditation exercise and asked us to share the experience with our classmates. And even though angels, archangels were not part of my consciousness up to that point, when I closed my eyes, I immediately saw what I can only describe as an angelic presence. I mentioned this to the teacher, and he said to ask the angel its name. I did, and immediately heard Gabriel. That night, my daughter, who was 12 at the time, said she wanted to experience Reiki. And as my hands hovered above her head, she said that she began seeing members of our family who had passed, and there was an angel flying above them. And I asked her to ask the angel its name, and immediately she responded, Gabriel. Needless to say, this was a confirmation for me of my experience earlier that day, and raised the question, is there a specific archangel that resonates with groups of families?
Well, again, it is Gabriel. It is actually Gabriel because, like I said, she is the one who oversees parenting and, the relationships between parents and children. And it's really her area, besides also being the messenger angel. And so it's a good use of both of her expertises, if you will, to put those two together in a family setting. And you just gave me the chills when you were telling me, I haven't seen the archangels yet. I have asked them to show me, what they look like. And as of yet, I haven't been given that genuine, wonderful opportunity. But I'm hoping someday, like your daughter, I'll be able to actually see these angels.
And the description she gave was exactly what I saw, which is essentially a being of light in the form that we think of as an angel.
Oh, and what else do you need? I mean, that is so gorgeous, right? I mean, if you're in the dark and you're just talking to the angels, and if you start seeing like flashes of color here and there, they are telling you they're sending messages. If you see emerald green, that's Raphael. Yep. If you see copper, that's Gabriel. Yep. So that's awesome too.
We ended our last segment. I had to cut you off because we had to take a break. But Metatron, very quickly about yes. Metatron.
Oh, Archangel Metatron is so interesting because he's one of only two archangels who ever used to be human. He actually was the biblical prophet Enoch. And so he knows what it's like to be human. The only other archangel that knows what it's like to be human is Archangel Sandalphon, who used to be Elijah in the Bible. And these two men, and they lived such a pious life that God, when they died, God gave them this ability to become an archangel. And so I tell people, if you want to talk to an archangel who knows what it's like to be human and knows what it's like to be down here and go through what we go through, call upon Archangel Metatron or Sandalphon. But Archangel Metatron, he's busy because he is the angel of ascension. And there's a lot of talk about ascension nowadays. And what that means. But if you want, along your ascension path, help, he's the one you would call. He's also, he's the writer, and he keeps the records of the divine record keeper, the Akashic records, the book of life. And so he can, if you have questions about, other lifetimes that you've led or your path, he can look in the Akashic records and he can tell you what you need to know to move forward. And he has a spinning cube. It is a geometric figure that spins, and he's able to spin it to cut away things that are holding you back, like, old thoughts, old thought forms. Things that are not allowing you to grow into where your soul should be. And so he provides, focus and motivation. He does so much for us.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. You share that archangels may protect us from both physical and emotional harm. How do they do this?
Oh, so Archangel Michael is the one you would call upon if you feel like you are under what's called a psychic attack. I felt like I was under a psychic attack when my husband and I were in Rome some years ago. And we were walking along a very busy street. And, we were holding hands and we got caught up in this crowd and we got separated. And all of a sudden, we turned the corner and there was a beggar woman that was on the street and she was holding out her cup and she locked eyes with me. And she just, stuck out that cup like she wanted me obviously to put something in her cup. But I was caught up in this crowd and I was looking for my husband and I just turned my head away and I just kept going. And I could almost feel her like boring into my head with her eyes. The next thing I know, and if you've ever been in Rome, they have these like square tiles that you're walking on, these cobblestones, and it's very easy to trip. The next thing I know, I am falling. Just falling. And I knew I was going to hit hard and I was going to do some damage. But it was weird because I called out immediately to Archangel Michael to help me. And it was all of a sudden like I was falling in slow motion. And by the time I hit that ground and Howard was there and he heard me smack it and he was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I jumped up. I had no pain. I had a few little scratches on my elbow, but I was fine. And he said, "I can't believe that you're jumping up like this." He says, "It was so weird. It looked like you were falling in slow motion." I said, and that's exactly what it felt like. And I know that I had been under some attack from this person and that calling out to Archangel Michael had saved me because I could have easily had a broken hip and it would have been a mess.
Absolutely. There's a wonderful prayer and meditation on the four great archangels in Judaism that says, "May Michael be at my right, Gabriel at my left, Uriel in front of me, Raphael behind me, and above my head, the Shekinah, the divine presence." Are there comparable meditations in other faiths and practices?
That I don't know. That is not something that I'm aware of, but I can tell you that I had a dream that turned out to be a nightmare. And it was the first time that I was ever attacked, if you will, in a dream where I really thought that it could have done some harm to me. And I called out to the angels. And when I, was able to kind of get up and look at myself and everything, I was okay. But I knew that I had, experienced something very, very evil. And when I talked to them later in the day, they said, "You had been set upon by demonic forces and we surrounded you and kept you safe."
Beautiful. Yeah. And I think that kind of visualization for anyone of any faith would be very, very reassuring and very, very loving and comforting.
Yes. And there's one more archangel that I really want to talk about, and that is Archangel Azrael, who is the angel of death.
Mm-hmm.
But Archangel Azrael is not like the Grim Reaper. His name actually means helper of God, and he helps when we are transitioning in death, but he also helps with life's transitions, the end of a relationship, the end of a job, moving to a new home, whatever transitions that we were in. But he has only come through to me a few times, and it was just right before my mother was going to pass away.
Mm.
And he had come through to me and he told me that my mom, excuse me, was going to be passing away within a month. And at that time, she was fine. I mean, she was almost 96, but she was doing well. And I said, "Well, will you be with her?" And he said, "Yes, we will."
Mm.
And a few days later, she fell and she broke her shoulder. And that was really the beginning of the end. And she told us when we would come, and we were always there at the care home, and she was in hospice, but she said that there was a young woman that came and was sitting next to her bed all hours. And this young woman had long dark hair, and she was thin and young, and she told Mom her name was Catherine. And we knew that nobody in the care home and none of the hospice people looked like that or was named Catherine. But Mom said that this woman was with her all the time. And then Mom passed. And a week later, someone sent me a condolence card. And on the front was a picture of an angel. And this angel looked exactly the way Mom described Angel Catherine. And that was a message to me that Mom was okay.
Beautiful. Her book, How to Chat with Archangels, inviting your divine best friends into your life. Debra Schildhouse, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get your book and learn more about your work and your wisdom.
So my book is on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, and it's on IndieBound. And my website is debraschildhouse.com.
Debra, thank you so much for joining us and sharing these inspiring and heartwarming messages.
Thank you, Victor. This has been amazing.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.